Hello, everyone. Welcome. For those that are watching from somewhere in this planet, my name is Daniel Santos, and we have here today a guest speaker, our friend Luiz Villaca, or Villaça. Right, Luiz? How are you, Luiz?
I'm well, thank you. It's an honor to be here.
Wow, is for us here at the Spirit Society of Baltimore, we are very eager to hear the message. We all know that we think that we know spiritism, right? Until someone comes and bring a different aspect of the spiritist teachings, and we are very curious to learn a little bit more about what you have to bring to us in the topic that you have chose. So before I pass the word to Luis, I would like to just, since it's the first time that he comes here and give a presentation to us, I'm going to read a little bit about Luis. Luis Vilasca, correct me over there. I always get confused.
Vilas is okay.
Vilas, okay. He's an electronic engineer with master from Cambridge, Mellon University. I knew I messed up with the university. And a Manchester University MBA. He is a work at the Group Fraterno, that is a spirit center in São Paulo, Brazil. He also virtually participates in studies at the Spirits Group of New York, and he has given live presentation at the Spirits Group of New York as January, and also in the International Spirits Council audience. So we see that Luis has a lot of experience in the Spirit's doctrine, and we are very happy that he accepted to share this moment with us. So, without further ado, I will pass the word to our friend Luis.
Thank you, Daniel. Thank you for the kind words. As always, you're very, very kind. Would you please help me with my PowerPoint? Thank you. Today, we're going to talk about Spiritist knowledge and some of its implications. I presume that most of us, you in the audience and myself, we are Spiritist workers. So, or maybe most of us, but I chose this provocative title so that maybe uh, uh, I can have you think about the things that you know already in a slightly different way, maybe, and to address particular points, particular implications of the Spiritist knowledge. So let's see if my mouse in the correct place. Now it is. Starting with the basic from the Genesis. And by the way, let me explain something of the way I structure my slides. Whatever is in italic is an exact reproduction of the whatever I am citing. I always place references in the bottom of the slide so that you know and you can go and check if I am reproducing it correctly. Whenever I can, I use the official translations. The codification, I'm always using the ISC translations, not always the latest edition, but always the ISC translation. Some of the books I'm going to mention today have not been translated to English yet. So on those occasions, they are in italic, but the translation has been done by yours truly here. Um, Whenever you see things that are not written in italic, it means that they are either my comments or reproduction, not word by word, but reproduction of the concepts. Okay, so starting with the Genesis, chapter 1. Men and women know where they come from. We know where we come from through the Spiritist knowledge. We know that our souls progresses, they evolve unceasingly through a series of successive existences. We incarnate one time after the other with periods of being errant spirits. We know that our souls were created equal, but we have the same aptitude for progressing. And we, by exercising our free will, we progress in different speeds and in different fashions. But the point is, for us, Spiritists, thanks to the Spiritist knowledge, we know that the future is no longer just a vague hope of reincarnation, of coming back, of becoming an errant, conscious spirit. This future is a positive fact. I love this phrase, a mathematical certainty. With this knowledge, let's check out this affirmation by André Luiz Peixinho. André Luiz Peixinho is a very relevant spiritist from Bahia, a state of Brazil. He's the former president of the Spiritist Federation of Brazil, of Bahia. He's an academic, a PhD. In an interview by Eliana Haddad, he said the following. He told us the following. Spiritist knowledge is a proposed evolutionary paradigmatic revolution that intends, in his understanding, to transcend the materialistic vision, including it as a restricted, particular aspect of the cosmos. Meaning, very hermetic statement, meaning there's more than matter in the universe. He continues, Spiritist knowledge, demonstrates that reality is much vaster than what we can apprehend with our sensory world, or from our sensory world. That probably would be better in English. Point being, what Peixinho indicates here is that Spiritism, Spiritist knowledge, prove that life is much more than here and now. Life does not end here. Leon Denis, regarding the knowledge of life through aim, tells us that knowing this is of incalculable service in furthering our elevation and amelioration. Once we know where we tend, our steps become firmer. Our quest is no longer of merely earthly enjoyment, but of unceasing improvement. Happy is the man, he continues, who in this life of darkness steadily proceeds toward a chosen elevation. Hopefully, us, spirits, wish we unswervingly keep in view. Do we keep in view this? The whole point of this presentation today is to remind you of things we know and that perhaps we do not actually perform according to them in our everyday life. By the way, whenever you see those underlines, those are things that I underline for me to highlight the important points of the text I quote. And also, our dear friend Jussara Korngold, I believe, was one of the translators of this very, very complex work by Leon Denis. André Luiz has something to tell us about the Spiritist knowledge. This book, I understand, has not been translated yet to English. Sol nas Almas, the original title. In Portuguese, Sunshine in the Souls would be a possible translation. This is a book, maybe 70 or 80 short communications by André Luiz. One of them has to do with Spiritist knowledge, our subject today. André Luiz tells us that the Spiritist knowledge is as important in the realm of the soul as literacy in the domains of ordinary life. Humanity has as much need of Spiritist knowledge, in his opinion, as it has of bread. This is so because all humans, whether we like it or not, will rise from the dead. Resuming our assets in life is the same thing as a person who sleeps each night and wake up conscious the next morning with the happy or unhappy acquisitions he had the day before. Will reincarnate with the happy or unhappy acquisitions, skills, learning, evolvement that we were able to get in our last incarnation. In view of such reality that sometimes we forget, our obligation is, according to André Luiz, we should understand, edify, serve, and continue. As you see, this is not italic, so it's not a word-for-word translation. I'm going to cite now the view of the Brazilian Spiritist Federation on Spiritist knowledge, or a view. It comes from the EADE. The EADE is a set of modules that constitute an in-depth studies proposal of the Spiritist doctrine. It's an advanced course. Last 2 years, I presented a course on Tom 5. Very recommended reading if you have the opportunity, or a very recommended course if you have also the opportunity. But the Brazilian Spiritist Federation tells us that Spiritist knowledge favors our improvement and produces invaluable results. It clarifies us about ourselves, our origin, our destiny, the reason for us being incarnated. It gives us understanding about this incarnation and also understanding about life on the spiritual plane. It allows us to learn about the need to become better through the development of virtues resulting from transformation that we operate within ourselves. Now check out Emmanuel. Emmanuel, in On the Way to the Light, chapter 29, tells us that with Spiritism became a regime of responsibility for us, where each of us have to enrich our list of our qualities due to our understanding that they are a result of individual effort and labor. Only evolution was its arena, Spiritism, arena of activity and experience, due to its understanding of the fraternal ties that unite universal community. My English is rusty today, I apologize, but please bear with me. We go now to heaven and hell, talking about Spiritist progress. Kardec clarifies, actually the benefactor spirits clarifies through Kardec in the codification, that our progress is the fruit of our own labor. Because we are free, we have free will, we labor for our advancement. with greater or lesser activity or negligence according to our will, accelerating or retarding our progress, and consequently our happiness. We are therefore authors of our own fortunate or unfortunate situation. Each of us who lag behind cannot blame anyone but ourselves, just as the one who evolves quickly has the exclusive merit of its own effort. Back to Brazilian Spiritist Federation, the Spirit doctrines points to a safe path that one must follow to achieve that. We should study and work. We should have responsibility to commitments and duties. We should we should fight bad tendencies. And we should persevere in our efforts for good. That would be a summary that the Brazilian Spiritist Federation gives us. And they tell us that by doing that, changes will occur in the quality of our thoughts, reflected in our words, and in our actions. And they continue. The clarified spirit acquires a new vision of life, of ourselves, and of others. We start to pursue behaviors that interfere, directly or indirectly, sooner or later, in the improvement of the world. Check out our responsibility. We're just like that guy in the picture. We are part of moving the world up the incline. But the persistence in the good that we must have is an arduous task. It requires firm action of the will and managing the will, us managing our will as an instrument, must be a conscious operation to fight imperfections. Becoming better has a lot to do with uh, attacking our imperfections. We have been building here on knowledge that you already have, but pinpointing a few elements to try to get us guidelines for our behavior, for us, to remember that we'll have another incarnation after this one, and another, and another. And we should aim towards that direction, and not only to tomorrow or the year after in this particular incarnated life. We could talk, for days on the implications of this, but I pick it up three or four aspects, single aspects for us to discuss together. They are not more, I believe, than recommendations for us Spiritist workers. I believe that most of us, as I have mentioned, are Spiritist workers. In the Spirit's book, Allan Kardec tells us that the spirits must acquire experience. And in order to do this, the spirits must know good and evil. Evil depends on the willingness one has for doing it, according to the Spirit's book. Good is always good. Evil is always evil, whatever a person's position may be. But what he meant with the last phrase was The difference is in the degree of responsibility. We that know more have much more responsibility, and the willingness that we impart when we do evil or when we do not do good is much more accrued to us. We're much more responsible for it. Going back to the Genesis, and here I'm showing the face of the book published by the Spiritist Alliance for Books, João and Jussaras, I believe, but the text actually comes from the ISC translation to be consistent. The spirits tell us that one could say that evil is the absence of good, the same as cold is the absence of heat. Where good does not exist, evil necessarily does. It's an interesting analogy, very, very, warm to an engineer such as myself. To make a place cold, what we actually do is that we remove the energy from it. So essentially, in this analogy, if you remove the goodness from something or from someone, what is left is evil because it's the absence of good. Just not practicing evil is the beginning of doing good. And as evil proceeds only from us humans, we can avoid doing evil whenever we wish. So it's essentially up to us to do good. Now I go to a very recent publication. I think that part of my mission is sharing with you old and new books. And I think that if I drive you to read something, I am already contributing in a way. So this has been published, I believe, last week. It is a paper by José Alberto da Costa Machado. José Alberto da Costa Machado is present in the Spiritist movement of Amazonas, Brazil. And he wrote an article. He's a PhD as well, as Peixinho that I already mentioned, and he wrote a paper on this review Spirit that it's about free will, and his paper is titled "Free Will and the Prior Circumstances of Human Actions." And in the end, he summarizes with something like this: natural laws, both those that govern matter and those that govern the life of the spirit, are expressions of the will of God. Natural laws sustain the cosmos, govern microparticles, guide and drive the progress of spirits. Within the boundaries of these laws, and using the resources at disposal of us, at our disposal, to act in favor of our progress. Resources that would be thoughts, emotions, desires, yearnings, our capacity for ideation, our free will. Using those resources, we become the builders of our happiness, of our misfortune. Check the responsibility. This is the front page of this recent review Spirit number 10. And he continues, It's about the law of cause and fate. I was mistaken. The issue is regarding the law of cause effect. It's published in 6 languages, I believe. Go to the site, the ICS site, the ISC site. Download this magazine and check it out. But José Alberto continues. Thus, it is necessary for us to invest in healthy mental conduct and balanced emotion. This is his advice, so that our acts are commendable and our acts promote also the well being of now, and those actions become the seeds for a promising future. Sorry. Thinking about the good, desiring the good, and working for the good will clarify the steps now and build the triumph further ahead. And would focus us on the treasures of heaven, as mentioned in Matthew 6:20. That says, "But lay up for yourselves treasures in heaven, where neither moth nor rust destroys, and where thieves do not break and steal." Essentially saying what we have been mentioning along this presentation. Let's focus ourselves in the treasures that we'll take with us when we discarnate. Those are the things that rust will not destroy and thieves will not steal. Another aspect would be love. Lazarus, in a communication made in 1862 in Paris, and that is reproduced in the Gospel according to Spiritism, tells us that the exquisite apex, I wouldn't use exquisite if I were translating, but anyway, the apex of sentiment is love. Not love in the ordinary sense of the term, but love as that inner sun that condenses and joins all suprahuman aspirations and revelations. The law of love replaces the personality with the union of all beings. Happy are they who love, for they know the anguish neither of the soul nor of the body. We should love. Those who love have feet that are light and live as though transported outside themselves. What an image. Whoops. In that same issue of Revue Spirit, the English edition as well, translated by our friend João Corngold, that hopefully is watching here. I wasn't checking the comments. Hey, great, a lot of comments. André Henrique de Siqueira writes about Spiritist evangelization, Spiritist culture. And in his writing, we point out, he's saying that in the Spirit's book, St. Vincent de Paul summarizes the roadmap of personal transcendence. St. Vincent de Paul says, "Love one another is a divine law by which God governs all the worlds of the universe." And it goes on. The perception of love as a physical law, tells us André Henrique, is the result of the process of instruction. And the practice of love characterizes the creation of new habits of behavior that consolidate in us the acquisitions of education for life. So, Let us, Spiritist workers, uh, practice love. It would be unfair not to show you more of San Vicente de Paul. Where's my mouse? Of San Vicente de Paul's communication. So part of it is here. And it also be a link to the next point. By the way, this image on the left is the center part of a painting by Ernest Dupont, a French painter. Saint Vincent of Paul was French. And the interesting is that this painting was done in 1853, very, very close to the publication of the Spirit's book. So it makes us wonder if it was, would it be an inspired painting? Who knows? Anyway, Saint Vincent de Paul tells us to love one another. That's the whole law, the divine law through which God governed the world. Be charitable, not only by taking from your bag a coin. This is important. Being charitable is not only the donating money. Actually, donating money would be a very small part of it. He tells us, be indulgent toward the errors of your neighbor. Instead of despising the ignorant and the addict, educate and moralize them. Be gentle, be benevolent toward all those who are less evolved than you. Be also gentle toward the lowermost beings of creation, and you will have obeyed the law of God. Linking to charity, charity manifested as a service to other is a liberating door. This comes from Brazilian Spiritist Federation. But it's necessary for us to understand that charity is not restricted to philanthropy. Emmanuel tells us from the book Spiritist Ideal that an act of charity, not darling, charity, carries within it the indestructible mortal of eternal perfection, composed of wisdom and justice, work and solidarity, trust and peace. And let's talk about thought. And we should always we should always remember that thought has consequences. Sorry. In the Spirit's book, Kardec tells us that spirits constantly act upon the mental world. Spirits see and comprehend one another. The universal fluid establishes a constant communication among spirits. It is the vehicle for the transmission of thought. Moving to Roteiro, another book by Emmanuel that I believe has not been translated to English yet. Emmanuel tells us that we are permanently assimilating mental currents. We ingest thoughts at every moment. And we also project around ourselves the forces, the thoughts that we share in ourselves. And he points out that if we dedicate ourselves to interact with hardworking and dynamic people, we find valuable support. And this principle governs our relationships not only with incarnate, but also with discarnate. And not only with discarnate, but also with incarnate. What we think and how we think affect ourselves and others. Back to Spirit's Good, which the Spirit's book, they tells us that by doing good, we repel the influence of evil spirits. We guard ourselves against listening to the suggestions. Just excuse me. We should guard ourselves against listening to the suggestions of spirits who excite evil thoughts in our mind, to those who incite discord and arouse in us evil passions. Above all, we should distrust spirits who flatter our pride because they are attacking us at our weakest point. Moving to gospel according to Spiritism, the power of prayer, sometimes we forget, is in the thought. Spiritism enables us to understand the mechanics of prayer, by explaining that the transmission of thought is the vehicle. And when the being to whom we have prayed comes in answer to our appeal, or when our thoughts ascend to this being, what is happening is the power, the transmission of thought. And all beings, both incarnate and discarnate, are immersed in the universal fluid and subject to that. The fluid receives an impulse of our will, and being the vehicle of thought, it transmits it. When the thought is directed towards some being on earth, on space, incarnate or discarnate, a current is established, and the thought is transmitted. This is how prayer is heard, and also how they transmit their inspiration to us, and how communications at a distance are established among incarnates and discarnates and each other. Through prayer, humans call to themselves, we call to ourselves the concourse of good spirits who come to uphold us in our good resolutions. I believe this answers a few of the questions I see rolling here, and inspire us with good thoughts. Through prayer, we acquire moral strength needed to overcome difficulties and to return the upright path when we have wandered from it. Through prayer, also, the good spirits can divert the evils. Sometimes it's not that they are diverting the evils, but they divert us from thoughts that could cause evil. And they do this without us being aware of it. And this is probably going to be the final set of advice for us, Spiritist workers. And here I'm going to, I still have time, hopefully, if they do not cut my audio. This requires explanation because I find it extremely interesting, the whole episode. I'm going to mention a communication from this book, Psychophonic Instructions, by Chico Xavier. This book, as far as I know, has not been published and has not been translated into English yet. And this book has a story, and the story is fantastic. And He who tells this story is Arnaldo Rocha in a introduction called Required Explanation. So he has, a very long explanation where he essentially tells us that they were in Pedro Leopoldo, in the Centro Espírita Luiz Gonzaga, with Chico Xavier, and they discussed at the time in 1951 that there was no center doing work towards obsessions in Pedro Leopoldo. There had been one, but it stopped its service in 1939 when the leader discarnated. So, Chico mentioned that the spiritual mentors more than once asked that a group was had to be created, a consensual and responsible group for the assistance in this obsession. It's a kind of work, for instance, that we do at Grupo Fraterno on Mondays and Thursdays. And eventually, actually, in 1952, they started this group, meeting on Thursday, focused on this obsession, on treating obsessions. It had 10 mediums, including Chico Xavier, who worked the same way as the other mediums there, giving psychophonic communications. And the way the group worked was that, and actually very similar to what we do in our group, after they supported the public, they spend the last 15 minutes hearing the direct word of the instructors, of the organizers in the ethereal world, the spirit world. One parenthesis here. I don't know if you know who Arnaldo Rocha is. Arnaldo Rocha is an important was an important spirit worker. He passed away, I don't know when, but an important spirit worker in Minas Gerais state. But he was also, or actually differently, his first wife was May May, the spirit that we know all contributed. We all know, and we know her contributions, and she passed away in 46. But there are many of her communications in this particular book, and they call the group May May Group. Anyway, how the book came about. 52, 53, part of 54, they lamented among themselves that those communications were lost. The things that the benefactors said in those 15 minutes, and it remained only in their memories. And discussing this with someone, a friend, actually Professor Carlos Pastorinho, but anyway, the friend is not important. Commenting this particular friend lent them their sound recorder. I wonder what a sound recorder was in 1954. I don't know if it was a wax recorder, a wire magnetic recorder, but definitely was something very rare in Brazil. And they used that recorder to record those end sections. This way, keeping other than in their memories the communications. Eventually, someone suggested that a book could be written, with those communications. And this book as far as I know, was the first book that presented psychophonic, not written, psychophonic communications by Chico Xavier. Isn't that neat? This is, by the way, Arnaldo Rocha. He died at 2000 something, 2010, 11, whatever. And this is a picture where I believe they both were they looked like they looked at 1954. Chico Xavier, I believe, was about 30 something. He was about 20 something. Arnaldo. Anyway, this is the parenthesis. Back to business. From the recordings of the May group, in chapter 8, they tell us, at the end of our tasks, at the evening meeting of April 29, 1954, we were pleasantly surprised by the visit of Professor Cícero Pereira. He was a valiant fighter for Spiritism in Minas Gerais, where he was widely known and affectionately remembered for his great service experience as president of the Minas Gerais Spiritist Union, based in Belo Horizonte. That's the capital of the province of Minas Gerais, and of the state of Minas Gerais, and as a devoted brother to all the companions of our cause. Here we consign the valuable psychophonic message that Cícero Pereira has left them through Chico Xavier. And that message, guys, is for us, Spiritist workers. It is a tough message, I should say. The title is Words from a Hard Worker. Cícero Pereira, who had discarnated in 1948. We are in 1954 now. Chico was said to be his dear son. So I picked part of it that is most interesting. Cícero tells us, we spirits, while incarnated, are old narcissi, imprisoned in our own illusion. We say that there are no pains greater than our own, and that our needs outweigh the needs of others. For this reason, the time reincarnated favor us a petrification of selfishness and vanity is hitting hard. We are readers of admirable books. We are moved and we cry. However, afterwards, we enter into the oblivion of every day, and we suffer amnesia of all that we read in the face of our obligations, in the form of our obligations. In our doctrinal houses, in our spirit centers, we intensify disputes around the human direction, magnetized by the less worthy aspects of the struggle that we're called to do. And he says something very interesting. We workers, spiritist workers, when we discarnate, as strange as it seems to us, we spiritual workers are usually placed in orientation services, together with the incarnated spirit workers who stayed. The spiritists with spiritists, as brothers, bound in the same duty to fulfill. I wonder, and sometimes this is a comment sometimes I make in our conversations before the work in our center. When we discarnate, we will come back to this center and work upstairs. Is this our next challenge? Anyway, Cícero continues. placed in in the position of those who guided us, I recognized how much impermeability we as incarnated offered to those who unselfishly guided us. Later, and I understand this is years later because he started working and working and working, he says that I began to understand something of the gigantic service that we have to do. And then he advises us we must balance our steps in order to safely guide the steps of others. We, Spiritist workers, must discipline ourselves within the responsibilities we embrace so as not to threaten the work of those around us. We should listen more, do more, and talk less. And he finishes by saying, by registering his experience, he hopes that we, Spiritist workers, when we discarnate, we'll get there moving better resources as better spirits. Ugh. But don't feel bad. André Luiz, back to Sol nas Nuvens, but a different chapter. He warms us telling that no one evolves in a day. We cannot be, as good as we wish, as persistent as we wish in a day, as disciplined as we wish in a day, as understanding as we wish in a day. But fraternity will enliven our reasoning, increase our memory, callous our hands, models our lives. This is why us spiritists in the terrestrial experience, we need to repeat attitudes, perspire in our duty, and persevere at our individual job year after year, not giving up. Huh? That's the title, by the way, of this particular communication, year after year. And so that's the message for us. We must persevere year after year, and we'll become better Spiritist workers, honoring our Spiritist knowledge, remembering its implications. And a final slide, the serious spirit. Hopefully, all of us watching here and uh, myself, we have faith, but it's rational faith. Faith that brings with it an almost mathematical certainty. Faith that's based on facts and logics. Faith that leaves darkness in its wave. We believe because we are sure. And no one can be sure unless we understand. And we understand. Spiritism leads to such results. It's been a pleasure. I used my 50 minutes uh, uh, in a very obedient way. And now I'm all yours, Daniel. I couldn't follow the comments. I'm sorry because I was, very involved in sharing my thoughts with you.
No problem, no problem, Luis. Look, thank you so much. I'm still processing all this information that you have brought to us. Is as I mentioned in the beginning, we come to the Spirit Center, we attend lecture, but always there is something that we need to be reminded. And thank you so much for coming here today and bring this reminder to us. Like the compilation of information you brought to us is something that We need to go back and watch again, read the books. I like the way you put together. You got like important highlights and organized in a way that only professional like you, probably because of your education, like to have things being organized. So that was great. But what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna open for question here, and
Thank
then
you
I'll
for the
go
kind
for
words.
yes, and then I'll go to the comment and question that we have here in our stream. Okay, question from here. Anyone, please?
Yes, I'd like to make a question.
Okay, I will repeat your question, but you
Okay.
can go ahead.
Hi, Luis. Thank you.
Hello.
It was beautiful. Thank you. Luis, I see that, I have some knowledge of spiritism. Why do I have to, to keep studying to get more, to know more? I see that a lot of people, nowadays, young people have a lot of knowledge inside of them and keep studying. Why do I need to, to keep getting more knowing about spiritism? Why is it gonna change direction of my life or make me better or whatever? Why?
I don't know if you got the question, but
I got I got part of it, but
okay.
the
So
question
pretty
is,
much, yeah, no, pretty much she wanted to know why does she need to continue studying it because she thinks that she already know quite well. Why
Not quite
what
well, but
quite well?
well,
You
I
wanna
know
come
some.
here? Yeah, come here. Ask here. So I'll
no,
go
I
to
got it.
him just
I
so
got
it's
it. No problem.
compromise. Yeah.
Hi, Luis. Thank you. No, not that
Hello.
I know a lot. I don't know much. But why should I? What should I get to know more? Why should I keep studying? What's gonna change myself or my life is keep studying. I haven't, I'm a good person. I do the best I can. Why should I keep studying spiritism? Thank you.
Well, uh, um,
I'm glad the question is not for me. So the ball is
no,
in your court now.
it's clear for me, but I just want to decide in what avenue should I approach here. First thing, you definitely should study. Uh, what we know is very limited to our senses, to what we see and touch around us. This is all that we know regarding the universe, what we see with a telescope, with a microscope, what you see around you. Uh, the key point of Spiritist knowledge is that there's much more than this. We have lived lives, many lives, that we don't remember, but that are part of us. And we'll live others. And we are marching towards, improvement. How can we improve if we don't learn more? And how can we learn more without reading the communications of the spirits that, are errant spirits that share their thoughts with us, that are more advanced than us? How can we learn those things without studying? So, yes, we must study. But we should also be humble and, admit that we don't know everything, that we learn more, we could become better. And more than learning, if we act based on what we learn, and that's something that we, don't always do. Remember the comment of that worker that we have a lot of nice ideas, but we walk out of this meeting and we have amnesia and we start treating our neighbor whose dog is barking, not in a nice way. So we have to learn and we have to improve ourselves based on our learning. That's how we're going to become better spirits and move on instead of stagnate in our evolution. I hope I have answered you.
You did. Thank you.
Yeah, she said thank you. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Nice. And yeah, good point, and very nice the way you have put it. So no more question here. People are fine here. So in
How
fact,
many people?
we
How
have
many people?
we
Excuse
have
me. How
we
many?
have half of our public here, and the other half is from a home.
Yeah,
So,
but
but we have like
how many
equal
are there
amount of
physically?
the discarnate they are here. Okay, so let us
How many?
go
How many are there?
about six.
Good.
Okay, so let us go to the comment. There are a lot of people are here saying good afternoon. I wanted to thank you for everybody to connected. Majority of them, of course, they are participant in our center, but today is very cold here, so it's not, I don't want to give excuse, Luis, but some of the people that say, today I'm gonna watch from home, and that's great. I mean, like the most important is that we are connected mind to mind. Of course, be present in the physical environment, always great, but sometimes we are present physically, but mentally we are elsewhere, right? So I'm glad everybody that are here with us. We have about we had like 15 people, now we have like 12 connected. So Kirsten said it's a comfort to be reminded. I'm gonna put it here so you can see. It is a comfort to be reminded that life is more than what we perceive in this physical realm. Thank you, Kirsten, for the comment. So we have a couple of questions. So I will start with Kirsten's question. I'm gonna go in a sequence that we have here. And she asked first a question, Luis, can you share some tips to have a health mental conduct? And thank you for coming and speaking with us today.
Thank you, Kirsten. It's my pleasure to be here. It's an honor to be here. Well, I can share some tips that others gave me. Definitely, we should educate not only our actions, but our thoughts. And part of a healthy mental conduct is to avoid negative thoughts. Uh, João has given me a tip that he obtained from someone else that sometimes you cannot hold a negative thought. So a tip would be if you are in the middle of a negative thought, finish it and then put it aside. It's a tip. It sometimes works. Another one that works, another tip is uh, when you find yourself having, a thought that's not healthy, using the words of that particular article, talk to yourself. This thought is not mine. I'm not this way. I'm not going, to be a prisoner of this thought. And this helps you putting away that particular thought. Behaviors shape your thoughts also. Uh, if you, if one, let's say one, if one has a tendency to gossip, for instance, just using an example, uh, by controlling your gossiping, you also control related thoughts that are not, healthy and you should not cultivate. So, 3 tips. I hope it helps.
Yes, yeah, that's a good suggestion. So also she mentioned we need this message from Saint Vincent de Paul more than ever. Thank you. Yasko,
Yes,
okay,
yes, especially because love uh, 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 is something that's very difficult to define. The meaning of this word in the Spiritist context. It has different meanings in different situations. And this particular passage of Vincent de Paula, of Saint Vincent de Paula, and of Lazarus are very good to help us define what is love for us. I remember once I asked Jussara, what is love in the Spiritist context? I'll let her reply whenever. Ask her that.
okay, okay. So the next question is from Yasko Aracava. Yasko is in Brazil, but
Hello,
she
Yasko.
continue like participating in our meetings here because after many years being a worker of this house, she didn't disconnected, at least like with the blessings of internet. She has been followed very diligent our talks on Saturdays. Hi, Luis. As more spirits, we reincarnate more than once as a spiritist. Shall we expect that their evolution with the basis of spiritism will be quicker? Oh, only spiritist knowledge is not an Oh, only spiritist knowledge is not enough, like happening to those born multiple times as, say, Catholics. Wow.
Hello, Yasko. Yes, we. It's fantastic to have the internet to be able to interact remotely this way. And yeah, I've been present to many presentations with your questions. It's an honor that you're asking something. That's a very very good question, and difficult to answer. Um, we can say for sure that only spiritist knowledge is not enough. Um, I have experienced and I have heard uh, 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 others mentioning similar experiences of receiving former spirited workers for, in the obsession, in the disobsession sessions, to be directed and helped, even if they were spiritist workers before. I believe it has to do with you actually uh, uh, walking the walk, or if you just talk the talk. uh, uh, on the other hand, as far as I know, and as far as what I have read and studied, spiritist knowledge helps tremendously in the discarnation product in the discarnation process. Sorry. uh, I don't know if this will directly reflect in the speed of evolution, but I think it could be a good guess. Everything that we read suggests that if we are serious spiritists, if we understand uh, uh, what spiritism is about, if we incorporate those values in ourselves, that yes, this speeds up evolution, I think. Agora, I'm not sure if you're going to come back as a spiritists. I know what they have told us is that there's a good chance that they're going to go spiritist workers as ethereal spirits. But I don't think there's a guarantee that when we reincarnate, we'll find our path back to spiritism. I hope so. No, no audio.
Thank you, Luis. Yes, that is, we can hypothesize about this question from Yasko. Sometimes people say, okay, they use that passage that if more you have, more you know, more you're gonna be asked for, right? So if you already are a spiritist and know a little bit about spiritism, probably in the next lifetime, you're gonna be asked to be born in another place that there is no spiritism, so you can contribute and help to spread the message, right? So that's would be another hypothesis too, right? But I
Yeah,
think
it's a good one. But the point being a spiritist is not an antidote to get stuck.
right.
A spiritist worker. I remember a spirit worker asking me some time ago, "Do you really believe on this thing of reincarnation?"
Well, as
Well,
we have at least five basic principles, right? Like the belief in God is the first, right? Reincarnation, life, communicability, communication with spirit, right? The immortality of the soul, I mean, like if the person from the beginning they have problem to understand or to even believe in those principles, become very difficult to understand the spirit's teaching, right? Yeah, so it's kind of like, if you go to study math, if you don't understand the operation or do the math, so it's going to be very difficult one day to, to work in area that, you need to do calculation, right? So,
Mhm.
so Paula Schmidt also asked a question. She says, "Thank you for your excellent compilation." Yeah, I agree, Paula. How does Spiritism advise checking the quality of our thoughts as we are thinking? For example, sense our body reaction or feelings. Wow, that's a good question.
Yeah, thank you, Paula, for your kind words. Um, I don't remember reading anywhere in the body of Spiritism knowledge an advice on how we check our thoughts. I can give you my opinion, but uh, uh, body reactions or feelings, yes, are a part of it. Uh, my advice, my personal advice, is odd thoughts you perceive when you have an odd thought. And that's usually a low quality thought. Uh, as we begin to examine the thoughts we have, and that's something that not everybody does, huh? uh, uh, we begin to have a feeling for them. And we begin to kind of sense when we are inspired by good spirits and when diverted from where we should go. And this happens not only when, we lose our patience in the traffic or in the traffic, it's a double sense word, in the congested places, or when you're driving your car, or when someone is rude with you. Those are fairly obvious times, but there are others when we think a thought just diverts, and that's a good moment to say that to yourself. Hey, this is not my thought. I don't want it.
Yes, yes, that's a good point. And I think the second question, because she made two questions, right? So the example that she mentioned, that Paula mentioned, is already like a beginning of the answer, because if we can at least like observe the consequence of our thought, in the feeling that thoughts bring to us, if it is a feeling of sadness or happiness or joy, so that's kind of tell that specific thought is not good or bad, right? Depends of the feeling we emit. So I think she's in the right path here, and yeah, makes sense
Very,
what you said.
very good, Daniel. Very good.
Yeah. So I'm gonna jump the Spears Network question and go to her next question, and then I'll come back when she asks, when one feels tired or restless after apparent or apparently or apparent conversation with another, what might have happened energetically? This is something that happens a lot, right?
Yes. Well, Paula, the word energetically is very complicated because it has also multiple meanings. But uh, we know that in many circumstances, uh, spirits absorb. I don't want to use the energy. Spirits absorb our will or our impulse or whatever. Um, these could be incarnate or discarnated spirits. There's a theory that the vampires are a symbolism of this sucking of the will and the part of the person. So it might have happened that you were in an unhealthy environment, a place where there was a thought characteristic that was very low, very bad. Could be that the person you were talking to was consciously or unconsciously uh, getting things from you. It could be that the person had nothing to do with it, but there were other spirits there. If you read Liberation, for example, you probably will understand very extreme cases of this happening, of a person being even physically ill because spirits, in this case errant spirits, were, ba, 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 né? Taking things away from her. So what might have happened? You might have been in a very unhealthy environment, either because of the incarnates there, or because of the discarnate there, or because of both, and their influence was not positive, and you didn't feel well.
Yes. Yeah.
This, by the way, this happens. I was in a meeting like 2 days ago, and I walked off of it because I couldn't bear the climate, negative in a way, destructive, selfish. Jesus, it was horrible, and probably half of it was not spoken. You see, it was just there. So it happens.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's yeah, uh, good reply on Paula's question. Of course, this is already like tied for another talk, right? Because it can be very complex. There is many factors that plays
Yes.
when we have those type of conversations, and of
May
course,
I?
spiritual influence, and also the person also can transmit, their negativity. We can get those negativity. We are like human being are made of like at least 65% of water. We have research from the professor. Um, there is a Japanese professor, Emoto. I forgot his name right now. That shows that like thought can influence the molecule of water, right? And if your body is made of water, like at least 60%, so whatever the person is saying is projecting that type of energy to us, and we may absorb that or not, right? So I guess you are in the right way, and I agree with you on that comment, Luis.
Yeah, we discussed that actually in the presentation.
Emoto,
But
Emoto
I
is
want
right.
to, I want. You didn't put the question there, but that's Iracema Bennetson. Your
Okay,
question is
I'll put it.
great.
Yeah, I was leaving the but the end, but yeah, since you mentioned, so what do you think about what Hirasim is asking? Why is it difficult sometimes to practice patience with others? Oh, this is like the question that
Because we are not advanced enough. Actually, we
yeah,
are very, very low in the pyramid of advancement, and we've got a lot to learn.
we are in
And
the
I share
process,
with
right?
you the same sentiments.
Yeah, we're in the process. I'll finalize. I don't think we have, but I'll finalize with this question that we put here from the Spirit Network, because this question is so updated, right? And it's very important for us to not, you know, be here to judge, but at least as a spiritist. And this question I think is very appropriate for the moment that we are living right now. Is in this time of profound division and radicalization or polarization, how spiritism and spiritists can make a difference. I wanted to you to kind of like bring your thoughts on this topic. If you,
I think, first of all, by example. I think we, spiritist workers, have an opportunity to teach by example, to perform what we talk about, to be better persons. to put more good in the environment. The other day, I was in a graduation ceremony. I was in the bench, and I had to speak. And one of the advices I gave to the guys who were graduating was, be good, be good. The Your country needs this, the planet this, the universe needs this. So above all, be good. So that's probably would be my central thought on that question. What are your thoughts, Daniel?
Yeah, I think you nailed the head. Like besides being good, I think we need to do our part in the creation, right? So in this first book, we learned that sometimes we want the other person to do what they have to do, but the question is, I'm doing what I'm supposed to do it, and as a spiritist, it's our obligation to put in practice what we learn when we study spirits, right? So. I, my thought on this and this question would be like, do the best that we can do. In another word, what you said is correct. Do good, right? Good all the time in thought, action, and whatever other means that you can. Because sometimes we sit behind a computer and we let our bad thoughts go on, especially in social media, right? And as a spiritist, we need to be careful because otherwise we're gonna be like, also drag toward one side to another side, right? It's very complicated. I think we have a model that is Christ. Jesus was here 2,000 years ago, and he was living in a time that the planet, that region that he was living, was very, very difficult, conflict, right? And he just said, give to God what's God and Caesar what's Caesar. So we, as a spiritist, living in this time, we should emulate, or at least see what the master, our guiding mother, has brought to us, right? He pretty much didn't take side, but he said, okay, I'm here to do what my father in heaven wanted me to do, right? And he did through example, and that's our model. Our mother is Christ, is Jesus, right? So as a spiritist, we first need to ask that question: what is my contribution in this moment that we are living that can make a difference in our society, starting with our home, with my family, in the society, or in the place that we are living, right? So this is something that, of course, each one needs to do the self-evaluation. We are not here to judge or to tell what people need to do, but that's the situation we are living. We also cannot be blind, unfortunately. Sometimes we also don't do anything, as you mentioned. We are not doing good, right? We are doing evil, right? So your final consideration, and before I pass for the final consideration, people just say thank you. Wonderful presentation. Of course, Kishan saved me here if the motto is right. When I was trying to remember the name of the research, Iracema also, thank you so much, Mr. Luiz, for this great presentation. Paula, your wonderful spirit and heart shown through your very knowledge talk. Wow, that's good.
Thank you.
You have to come back. Thank you very much.
Mr. Eddie Vacari was my colleague
Was your
uh,
colleague? Oh, thank you so much, Eddie, for
at the
participating.
university. I sent him an invitation, and he was able to attend. Thank you, Eddie, for being there. Thank
Thank
you,
you, Eddie.
João. By
Come
the
back
way, thank
again.
you, thank everybody who's there.
Yes. But I would like you to finalize with a final remark, comment, and then it would be nice to do the final prayer if you can. So
Sure.
I'll put a little music here in the final, and then we will conclude our presentation. Okay.
Okay. So, final comments. Uh, I do hope that a little of what I mentioned today, that obviously was knowledge that you already had, but a little of what I try to imprint and sell to you today, uh, uh, will remain after this talk. And the essence is that there's more we can do, and we know we can do more. So let's try to be better spiritists. Not perfect, it's not in one day that we were able to achieve that, but gradual, continuous improvement. I think it will take us to a better place. I think we will become, better spirits. And that's why
Thank
we're
you.
here.
Yes, thank you. So now we can move to our final prayer. If we be kind to.
Sure.
Thank
So let's come down. Thank the benefactor spirits for allowing us to be here, sharing our thoughts, interacting, even though, we are far from each other. Let's ask them to inspire us uh, so that we can improve ourselves and add some of what we discussed today to our, everyday behavior that allow us to be better to others, that allow us to persevere more in our work. Let's ask, that they provide blessings to all of those that watched this presentation today, those incarnated that helped it happen as well, and also to all those, who need help. Let's, thank all those discarnated spirits here in my living room, in your living rooms, who also, watched this presentation and maybe got something good from it. And also thank all the incarnated, Eddie, Paula, Iracema, Kirsten, whoever's in the Spiritist network, Iasko, Valdir da Silva Rios, dear friend, Abby, Paula Craig, Antonia, Eric, you are there, Alba, and all incarnated that were present and that will watch this presentation later in a recorded way, for being here and for being good spirits. Thank you.
Thank you, Luis, and good night, everyone. And until next Saturday.